On today's show, are the Miami Heat and the Golden State Warriors both better off after the Jimmy Butler trade? Which teams are going to go on big runs in the second half of the season? We'll talk about that on tonight's Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
And welcome. You are Locked On NBA Game Night. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being in every day or making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today. No games tonight, but I'm joined as always from the great Locked On Bucks. What you got for me, Camille Davis?
Feeling good, enjoying my break too. I feel like, nice to have a little time off, read a couple books, up my intelligence level.
We're recording this before games usually start. It's nice.
Right.
It's nice for us. Today's episode, we're going to play Count It Up, where we count all the most interesting, fun things from the All-Star break. There are some definitely interesting things that happen, including I have a conspiracy for you. About All-Star weekend. But we're going to start here with the second half of the season, I guess. If you count the playoffs, it technically is a half, but it's not the second half of the regular season. There's some teams that always go on a run. Last year, the Mavericks went on a crazy run, and they went to the finals. There's always just some team that gets really hot. Celtics have done it before, where all of a sudden they just get super hot, and you're like, wow, where did that team come out of nowhere? And they started to go on a big run and start to prove some things, start to rise up the standings and do all that. Camille, you think that the teams that made the Jimmy Butler trade, both of these teams can make some kind of run? Talk me into the Golden State Warriors making a run. Right now, they're 28 and 27. They're 10th in the West. Where does a run take them?
A run gets them either to the top of the play-in or that 6 seed, just in that last spot, right? Like they're going to be in that 6-7 range, I think, for the Warriors this year, which you might look at and be like, well, what's to that? But given the West and the teams that are in there, like you just got to find a way to get into the dance and hope that you have a favorable matchup that you can take advantage of and continue to advance. And for the Warriors, I think making that Jimmy Butler trade did make them better this season, although long-term financially, you might look at it and be like, I don't know if you should have done this. But for right now, I think the Warriors really needed that second option that Jimmy Butler is going to be able to provide for them.
Jimmy Butler gives them so much, I think, that it's wild to look at the counting stats between Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins. They're almost the same. They're both averaging like 17 points. It was like, wow, what are they really getting? But a motivated Jimmy Butler who has to now sit up in his seat because Steph Curry is sitting next to him. He's never played with a guy like that, right? A guy that is above him in the level. Think even back to his time in Minnesota. I guess with the 76ers, Embiid was that, but like he wasn't like his senior, you know what I mean? He wasn't somebody that's going to motivate him to actually play better. And so I wonder what that culture of just even having a Steph Curry there is going to do for Jimmy Butler. He also obviously gives them a player that can get to the free throw line. They really struggle with that. They really struggle with finishing around the rim. They are statistically one of the worst finishers around the rim as a team for the whole season so far this year. And so I think he just gives them a lot. And I hope that he takes that as motivation, takes it to that next level, and shows that, all right, we can still do something with Steph Curry and Draymond Green here. Mm-hmm. Also, it helps that the Warriors have the 22nd highest strength of schedule. So they don't have a tough schedule. They play the Hornets twice. They play the Pelicans. They play the Nets. They play the Sixers. They play the Blazers twice. And they don't have Cleveland, Boston, OKC. Like they just don't have a lot of these top teams in their schedule anymore. And so that sets them up pretty well.
Strength of schedule was also something that had me going, like, I think they're in a good spot because they have, as you mentioned, like the 9th easiest schedule for the entire league, but the 2nd easiest remaining schedule in the Western Conference. So for them to have to go through the rest of their season, like at least the competition level, and that's no disrespect to any other team the Warriors is going to be playing this year. It's an NBA team. We know the competition level is going to be there, but not having to go against those heavyweights, that helps out a lot. And I remember after the Warriors lost, when they got blown out by the Celtics in like last month, after the game, Steph Curry was like, listen, when we don't score, like we just lose our spirit. Like It's something in it. We just lose it. And we've seen how defenses were playing the Warriors, where they just loaded up on Steph Curry. Like we don't really trust anyone else here to go get a bucket. So we're going to load up on Steph. You add Jimmy Butler to the equation. You mentioned the free throw shooting that he's able to bring to the table there, but also the threat of him just being able to create for himself is so great. I think it's going to do a lot for them offensively, which is an area that they've been struggling with so far this season.
And that's where he's different than an Andrew Wiggins, right?
Exactly.
Their stats are the same. The other thing I think the Warriors benefit from is that like almost every team above them has gotten worse somehow. You think about the Rockets; they went on that skid going into the All-Star break here, and we'll see what happens with them. I think they'll bounce back, but they have not necessarily gotten better. The Lakers, I think they get Luka. I know. We talked. The squad shows made fun of me again on it this week, but the Lakers, they bring in Luka Doncic, but he's coming off this injury. They lose some of their depth. I don't think they'll be necessarily better than they are right now. Next year is a completely different story, and obviously 10 years from now is a completely different story. But you think about the Mavericks. I mean, the Mavericks are as hurt as can be. Yeah. They're struggling with so many injuries. They don't have a center to go around right now. The Kings, I think, have gotten worse. You just go through each one of them, and you're like, man, down across the board. The Timberwolves are without Julius Randle right now because he has got an abductor injury, so we'll see what happens with that. It seems like everybody above them has gotten worse in some way, potentially in the short term. And so that leaves them an opening and an opportunity, I think.
Yeah, you pair the teams in front of them with the schedule that they have, with Jimmy Butler coming in. And I know the internet and everybody's clowning Draymond for going on national TV and saying, like, we're going to win the championship. But the level of confidence that he now has in this team with the addition of Jimmy Butler and what he feels that can mean for them, that internal buy-in is important. And I think his point about when he walks onto the court any night now, he's like, this is a game we're going to be able to win. And I do think that if the full team feels that way about it and has that confidence level, that is important. And I know you can't quantify that with numbers or stats, but there's something to that. And when you pair with everything else that we've already discussed, I think the Warriors are in a really good spot to take off after All-Star break.
A track record is nice to lean back on, right? Like to go back. What about the Heat side of this? Because you think that both of these teams could potentially go on a run. The Heat are 25 and 28. They lose Jimmy Butler, but they gain some depth there. They've got an all-star in Tyler Hero still. They've got Bam Adebayo. What makes you think the Heat could go on a run?
The Heat have been really interesting this season with all the noise around Jimmy Butler. And we know the heights that Jimmy can reach, which is why him with the Warriors makes a lot of sense because he's also motivated. But what he was with the Heat was no longer that guy because he wanted that contract. He wanted that security. He wasn't fully in on the team going forward. So I think for the Heat, it's a little bit of addition by subtraction in the sense of where this team was this year. Not looking at past years or thinking about how it looks when they get to the playoffs. It's going to be able to help their chemistry coming in. Wiggins, you pointed to the numbers, like he can give you some of the raw numbers in different ways than what Butler gave. But this is now a Miami Heat that's being built around Tyler Hero, being built around Bam Adebayo, and Kel'el Ware is somebody who's been coming on as of late as a rookie. And if he continues to play at the level that he has, that's a formidable front court for any other team to go against with Ware and Bam. And then you have Tyler Hero, you got Wiggins, you got Mitchell with the defense there. Like I just kind of like the pieces that Miami has. And when you look at the East, it's a chance for them to move up.
Did it hurt you to say really good things about the Heat for like 2 minutes?
A little bit. But Jimmy's gone, so I don't feel as strongly about the Miami
it's just
Heat.
Connected to Jimmy? Okay, I get that.
Jimmy was the reason for a lot of the heartbreak for Bucks to the Miami Heat's hands here as of late. So like Jimmy's gone. It's a different chapter, different era for a certain degree. So
ding dong, the witch is dead, right?
A little bit after what he did to us in the playoffs 2 years ago. I will never forget Jimmy Butler turning into Michael Jordan on the Bucks and that run that the Heat made. I will never forget it.
Yeah, you look above them. You've got the Magic, who we'll talk about a little bit. You've got the Hawks, who got worse, I think, with the DeAndre Hunter trade alone. The Pistons, the Bucks, we talked about in the East Squad show. Everybody on the East Squad show thought the Bucks got worse with the Kyle Kuzma trade. So maybe that hurts them. Nobody was scared of the Pacers either. So like there is some softness in the standings above the Heat too. I don't know that I'm so bought into the Heat though. But maybe there is something to all right, we finally just lost the headache that now we're excited to just move on, be us, and everybody else gets to, it's the Bill Simmons Ewing theory where you lose the biggest piece of the puzzle. Now everybody else kind of steps up a little bit, and then you're better than what you were even before because now Jaime Jaquez gets more shots. Tyler Hero is the number one option on offense, so he gets to step into his own. Maybe Bam Adebayo finally steps out of the shadow and we finally see the offense that we've been promised from Bam Adebayo for years, right?
Yeah, that piece of it. And when you look at their record and the losses that they do have, a lot of those were blown leads. Like they were up in a lot of those games. I saw only the Utah Jazz have blown more double-digit leads than the Heat so far this season. The Jazz have blown 16 of those leads. The Heat have blown 13 of them. So it's like when you're looking at them, like 13 of those games they lost. They were up by double digits at a certain point. So like if this is a Heat team now with all the distractions out of the locker room that they were facing, we heard Tyler Hero come in already saying like, I don't like, is it a problem that Wiggins has 22 after Butler had 22? After how this year went, I don't think it's a problem at all. So like you have that aspect to them. They can kind of turn that part around, be able to build leads, sustain them, have the chemistry going. I think there's room for them to go on a run. And also, I never, ever count out Spo and what he can do with his team, even if they're undermanned. So I think the Heat got it.
There's something about those great coaches too that can turn a team with just all kind of role players, or even just like above average role players, if you want to call. The other thing going for Miami, they have the 6th easiest schedule. They play the Wizards 3 times. They play the Hornets twice. They play the Pelicans, play the Sixers twice, and the Bulls twice. Honestly, right there, that could be a run. You win a couple of you win all those games, you take care of business, and then you win a couple other games you maybe shouldn't have, and all of a sudden you're in a good spot.
But I tell you what, though, the Wizards get. I'm a low key Wizards fan now that Chris Middleton is there. That was my favorite buck. So like I got it. I'm kind of like, hey, we ain't gonna talk about the Wizards that bad. You know, they might get one.
No, they're not.
Camille,
they're 9-45. They're very bad.
They are very bad, but
on
Chris
purpose.
Middleton, you know, I know his ankles are like deteriorating, but like, you know, little love.
Coming up, the ankles have been fixed for the Orlando Magic. They're going to be healthy, but can they go on a run in the second half? I say yes. We'll talk about why coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by TurboTax. Go check out TurboTax and see how you can make your taxes so much easier for you. Taxes used to be, okay, I've got to figure out my taxes. I've got to do all this, got to do all this, got to do this. It was waiting, wondering, worrying some more, trying to figure out what you're going to do. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who will give your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Everything is something they wanted me to say on there. You can get the most money back guaranteed. Everything for you at TurboTax. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thanks for hanging out with us here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Being in every day or listening every day, we have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Check the link in the description or just search for a show that covers your team, like the Bucks. If you're still a Mavericks fan, still hanging around, you can find that too. If you're an Orlando Magic fan, you can find Locked On Magic with Philip Rossman-Reich. And to me, when I first thought about this, I was like, all right, who can make a run in the second half? The first team that came to mind was the Magic, to me. They're 27-29. They've dealt with all these injuries. They've only had 11 games of Paolo and Franz since they returned from injuries, and they were a mess. They were 4-7 in those games. They did not play very well in those games. But to me, I think that if somebody's going to go on a run, you have to have the right formula of we're getting some guys back. We've got talent that can rise to the occasion. We also have an elite thing that we can do, like an elite skill, elite side of the ball. Their defense can be that. They're supposed to get Suggs back in the first couple of games back from All-Star break. Paolo and Franz are back. And I just think that if those guys can figure out their offense in those 11 games, they had 106 offensive rating in that. If they could just score just even enough points, that's with Paolo's shooting 39% from the field, 24% from three. If he can just get right, so maybe it's just him. If Paolo can just get right and get back to the player that he was before the injury, then we're really talking, and I think this team can really do something.
And I think that's fair. That's fair. I think with so much of the injury talk, and this is a Magic team that a month ago, up until like Franz and Paolo were coming back, I was really impressed with how they were able to stay afloat with all the other injuries that they were facing. But I think Suggs is a really sneakily key important part of that team, because when he does not play, it changes the dynamics of everything. So for the Magic, I think that as long as they can stay healthy, they're going to be formidable because, as you mentioned, they do have an elite skill set, and that's their defense. The question with the Magic is just going to be consistently, can you generate enough offense? And in those games, we know they don't like to shoot the threes like that. Can you limit your opponents from shooting so many threes that it becomes a math game that you can't win at that point? So I could see why you would go with the Magic. Some of the arguments for the Heat apply here of like looking who's ahead of them in the standings. Are they reachable? Can you get there? And I think it's fair to think that the Magic can do that as long as they stay healthy and they can kind of keep figuring out that offensive piece of it.
They're only 2.5 back from 6th in Detroit. They're 3.5 back from 5th in Milwaukee, and they're 4.5 back from the Pacers in 4th. Like that's not a big gap. It can be done. They've got 26 games left. Wendell Carter Jr. was, after a game the other day, said after the All-Star break, it's probably the most important 26 games of my career because he's got to prove that he can be a starting center for this group. And so I think the Magic players feel this weight. All right, we got our guys back. How are we going to attack this after the All-Star break? And I think that hopefully something that they galvanize around and not something that psychs them out.
Yeah, because they got there last year. They got to the playoffs last year. They understand like we have to make it to this point to be able to go through that battle again. And I think for the Magic, looking at them and what they have ahead of them as well, it's going to be really important for them to figure out the minutes when they're staggering their stars as well. I was seeing something come through about just like the numbers when it's Franz on the court and Paolo off and Paolo on the court and Franz off. And the numbers they lean so much more favorably toward when it's the Franz minutes without Paolo than the Paolo leading alone. So trying to figure out those minutes as well when they are staggering, because you're going to want to have one of your two best players on the court at all times. So just figuring out those minutes is going to be crucial for them as well.
To me, it just sounds like Paolo Banchero has to get right. And just
play better, yeah.
Right, and if he can play to an all-star level, then they'll make this run. It kind of comes down to that, and sometimes it's as simple as that in the NBA. But that's because star players have just so much sway over what your team is capable of, and so yeah, in the 11 games since he and Franz were playing together, he was averaging under 20 points. He was shooting 39% from the field, 24% from three, and 63% from the free throw line. Like those shooting splits, just to me, tell me even that. Just say that something was off. And so maybe this All-Star break, he didn't make the All-Star team, so he was able to take the full break. They come back, and hopefully Jamal Mosley can get this team going. They have the 6th easiest schedule. We keep going back to strength of schedule, but that's important. It matters. They play the Wizards 3 times, and maybe Middleton gets one of them, Camille.
That's right.
No, he won't. Because they won't be able to score against this Magic team. They play the Wizards 3 times. They play the Pelicans. They play the Hornets. They play the Bulls. They also play Toronto twice in there. So they've got a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. They don't have, let's see, they have Cleveland twice. They have Boston once. They have Memphis once. Those are their toughest games that they have. But I think there's an opportunity here for the Magic for sure.
It is. And I think one other sneakily thing about their schedule going forward, most teams have between like 26 and 30 games left to play after the All-Star break. The Magic are luckily one of those teams that's the 26th. So they have the fewest amount of games coming out of the breaks. When you think about even the scheduling of the games coming up for them, they don't have to cram as many games in as many days as other teams do. So that's going to be helpful for them along the way as well, because I do think that Paolo getting reacclimated and making sure you're able to get healthy and get enough rest is going to be important for the Magic down the stretch.
The other team I tried to talk myself into was the Timberwolves. They have the easiest schedule left in the West. And sometimes you just like post All-Star break, you just lock in. And so sometimes if the vibes are your issue, you just kind of push that past and say, all right, I can focus and be cool with this guy for the next 2.5 months and try and make it work and see what happens. Right. And put that stuff behind it, because it is kind of lock in time. And so that to me, I think is the case for the Timberwolves, is that maybe they just, all right, let's put it all past us. The other thing with them, they have the most clutch losses in the NBA. So maybe just some of those swing the right way for them. They've 19 clutch losses. They have their record was their entire record is 31-25. That means they only have 6 losses that are not clutch losses. So even if just some of those swing the right way for them, that changes it. And then my last thing on the Timberwolves was that Julius Randle is out with his abductor injury, and we'll see. I don't know how long it's supposed to take him to come back. We'll see. I think he's supposed to miss some time after. Maybe that allows Chris Finch to just like sneak him off the bench and just make that move. Because when they put Naz Reid in the starting lineup, it just does more for you shooting wise and all that, and just fit and everything. And then Randall can be the scorer off the bench. And so maybe Finch can just like Trojan horse him off the bench and just like, hey, we're bringing you back from injury and let's try and usher you into this spot.
That could be. I mean, they have to slow roll it, and eventually he has to make his way back into the starting lineup. So you're going to have some of the same.
Does he?
No, listen, Nick, you're going to have some of the same problems that you were having before. But one thing for them and the injuries is like they have been able to get some of their younger guys a bit more run over the last few weeks because of some of the injuries, not even just to Randall, but with Conley and whatnot. So like if Terrence Shannon Jr. and like Rob Dillingham are guys who can kind of take a leap over these last however many games the Wolves have, 28, 29, whatever it is, that can be important for them come playoff time because they still do need some guys they can count off for scoring off the bench as well.
As long as Terrence Shannon Jr.'s jersey is right side up, I think we're going to be doing all right.
I can't believe that they hung that mug up upside down.
The Illini, when he got his jersey retired at Illinois this last week, it was upside down. They unveiled it.
I don't know what I would do if I would have been watching it like, wait, you turn around like, am I on Punk'd right now? Am I on Anthony Davis's new show? Am I
you could just do a freestanding handstand. That would be the greatest moment, right? Like you just go straight into the handstand and just like look at it upside down.
A feat of athleticism for We've been
looking up the All-Star weekend upside and downside to see if there's anything redeemable about it. But let's talk about the most interesting, fun things and count it up about the All-Star break coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by Hungryroot. I have an issue that I just can't keep adding more things to my life. So when I try to eat healthy, there's so many more steps that you add to that. You have to figure out groceries, figure out your meals, figure out when you're going to eat them, when you're going to cook them and put them together and all that stuff. And I was having a hard time sticking to my goals. But everything changed when we discovered Hungryroot. It is the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungryroot, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. So you don't have to figure out both of those things at the same time. They take care of your grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on taste and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to my door. It's been a huge time saver, made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as we do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just visit hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box. Free item of your choice. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out.
Big chicken, baby.
Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
It's Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA for the week, but this time we're focusing on the weekend. According to a Redditor who posted on the NBA subreddit, only 42 minutes of actual basketball was played in the 3-hour All-Star game on Sunday. They broke down the minutes. We didn't even get a full game, because usually a game is 48 minutes.
Yep.
Right? We didn't even get a full game of it, but there was so much stuff packed into it. And I started to look through some of the things they packed into it. There was the Mr. Beast Challenge, which was actually only 5 minutes. It seemed much longer to me in time. You had the tribute to Inside the NBA that was 9 minutes, and that seemed much longer than that at the time. You had the halftime musical performance, which was only 6 minutes. That seemed much longer than it was. And you just had so much stuff packed into that I started to think about, all right, did TNT mess this all up and just cram everything through full of commercials and extra things? And maybe they got paid by Mr. Beast to do his challenge, and maybe they wanted to just do an FU to ESPN with the inside guy saying, all right, their era is done. They'll go to ESPN and never be the same. Did they mess it up on purpose because they lost the rights to the league and wanted one more big payout? All right, we're just going to take all the ad money we can.
That would make me feel a lot better about what they put out there if that was the case, because the pacing of the entire event, when they chose to do the stoppages, what they chose to do, it all felt really chaotic. And I was like, if it was on purpose, at least that makes sense, because otherwise I don't know how you thought that this was going to be in the best interest of the league, advertising the players. Like, we saw Kevin Hart more than we saw some all-stars. Like, come on now.
Yeah, Kate Koo was on our East squad show, and he said that Cade legitimately played 4 minutes total.
Crazy.
Cade Cunningham.
Your first All-Star.
Yeah, and got to play 4 minutes, which I don't know, maybe in a regular All-Star wouldn't be, but yeah, there's something to that when TNT's just like, all right, we're just gonna take in all this ad money and all the like pomp and circumstance of just like, this is us going forward.
It's their parting gift. Like they said, like Denzel, we're leaving here with something.
We're leaving here with something. Ad revenue is what we're going to leave
That's
with.
what we're leaving with.
Kevin Durant always goes to Twitter and thinks he's going to leave with something. He said, quote, I think it's more fun to complain about the NBA than to actually watch it. Crazy. Cancel All-Star Weekend. Just give everybody a break since we're also miserable around this time. True or false? Do you agree with Kevin Durant here?
I mostly agree with Kevin Durant on that. I do. I actually do. I think that I say a lot of times that the media coverage around the NBA, you would never see the NFL and like display most of it. Like the NFL does such a good job of bigging up their stars, even in matchups where you're like, I have no interest in watching this 2-11 team against this 4-8. Like, I don't want to see it, but they'll talk about it in a way where you're like, oh, okay, well, I could kind of see myself watching this. But on the night of an All-Star game, like you have commentators talking about bowl. Like, why are we talking about bowl right now? Like, I do think the NBA media landscape is more focused around the trades and the free agency than the actual game itself a lot of the time.
The drama. We're guilty of it as well. But that's also one of the reasons why we started game night is because we wanted to focus on the games. So we wanted to say, all right, let's push all the drama and other stuff to the other show and let's just do games. We don't have games tonight, so we're doing some of the drama, doing some of the other stuff right now. But you know. So I agree with you that I think, and it also sometimes it is more fun to talk about it. The NBA has turned their players into stars and has turned these guys into personalities, and they have moments. And KD said something else where the only thing people like, and he started to name a bunch of things: trades, playoffs, free agency, and beefs between players. Yeah, that's kind of all people care about with like stars and like celebrities too. You have a big movie coming out. Do you have a beef with somebody? Is it your big moment? Like, is it award season? That's kind of what we care about when it comes to that. So it's hard to care about a team, I guess, day in and day out, but you can follow a Locked On team.
Yeah, because when you take the focus off of the game, you miss the beauty and the journey of getting to the championship and all the things that come along the way. So like, I really do think there's something to what KD was saying.
Yeah. There is something to this too. There was a moment in the All-Star games where the camera cut to LeBron James. He's standing there with Jaren Jackson Jr., Jalen Williams, and Anthony Edwards. And LeBron is talking to these guys, and they're all kind of nodding along, and you just like see kids around their idol just like nodding, like, oh yeah, whatever he said. LeBron was mouthing something like he don't even watch basketball. He just said that over and over again. He don't even watch basketball. It's like you could very clearly see him mouth that. My question is, who's he talking about?
One of them TNT coaches, guaranteed. That's
Kevin Hart, Charles Barkley, Mr. Beast. Who do you think he was talking about in that moment?
It has to. So Jaren, who was the coach for the Jaren Jackson? Anthony that was the young guy. So that was Kenny's team, right?
Kenny's team.
I feel like he wouldn't say it about Kenny. Of all of the TNT guys who would be up there, I feel like Kenny's the one, and you'd be like, okay, I kind of give you the pass, but it's got to be about Shaq or Chuck. It's got to be.
Shaq's team did win, right? LeBron was on Shaq's team, right?
Yes, because I was the OGs.
He had the OGs, so he may be talking about Shaq. Shaq is in too many commercials to watch basketball. It just is what.
That's what he's getting paid. I mean, he's getting paid for the commercials too, but like also getting paid to watch basketball.
He's getting paid to talk about basketball. He doesn't even have to know anything about it, right? Like,
that's a good point.
I think he was talking about Kevin Hart though, because I think they kept cutting back to Kevin Hart. They put him over They kept putting him over the loudspeaker in the arena. That was wild to me. It's like, all right, he doesn't even watch basketball. Like LeBron would know that about Kevin Hart.
That's a good point too, because the Kevin Hart yelling as they were playing ball. Like, I get you want to have like a Rucker style environment, but the PA announcer was already kind of doing that without like insulting the way the game is played now. So,
Somebody who didn't care for the Kevin Hart talking to him during the game was SGA. It did not sit well with him. There's a lot of things that didn't sit well with SGA. He just kept telling him, all right, can we move on? Can we go?
He was right.
But Giannis loved SGA and gave us one of the greatest moments of All-Star Weekend.
Just shake my hand. I just want a little bit of aura. That's what I want. I got you, bro. Okay? Hey, every time this guy walks on the court, I feel like he walks in slow mo. He doesn't walk in slow motion, but this is what I feel when
Step back left, yeah.
He doesn't step back left. He walks through, but there's something about the way he says aura that just like it like scratches your brain just right.
Just shake my hand. I just want a little bit of aura. That's what.
Aura. I love Giannis. I love Giannis. Even with him not playing, he was able to find a way to make sure that he was also in some of these highlights and whatnot.
He was in every highlight of the dunk contest.
Oh, yeah, in the background, just having the time.
He was like, I'm going to be the Kevin Garnett this year, where I'm just in every shot afterwards. Or I'm going to be, was it Paul Pierce that had his video camera?
Yep.
Like,
you got to keep the legacy alive. That's what, I do love seeing the stars at Saturday night, even if they're not participating in the events. Just be there and part of the crowd. Like that always adds to it as well.
Last one, we got time for one more. So we mentioned Draymond Green talking smack about the rising stars and talking smack about the format and just saying negative things about the NBA over and over again. It felt like anytime he got a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And Oscar Robertson had something to say about it and something to say about Draymond. He said, Draymond says so much. I mean, who cares what he says? It might be boring to him because if he's not passing the ball to Curry, what is he doing?
Count it up.
Rank the roast from 0 to 5.
It's a solid 4. That's a solid 4. Big O came through swinging because the tone that he also had when he was saying of like, who cares what Draymond? I mean, like all he really does, like the delivery, it was perfect. It was the perfect amount of shade. Like it was sunny. You could like, it got shady and you were just like, what's happening? It was like, oh, it's the Big O talking about Draymond right now. That's what's happening.
If he's not passing the ball to Curry, what is he doing? It's a great question. What is he doing?
Yelling. Pointing angrily at someone.
Punching. I don't know. There's a lot of things, but on offense, I don't know what he's doing. I was cracking up about the Big O's comment there about Draymond. It was a good way to get back at him. There you go. That's Locked On NBA Game Night. Go check out your favorite team has a show that covers every one of these teams. So go check out that. Find your show. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA Game Night. Boom.